Hey everyone, geophysicist Stefan Burns here. There is a significant Earth shift that is occurring at this moment in time. In fact, there's going to be a huge spike in energy here on Earth on and around July 25th. So July 24th, July 25th, right around then. Actually, this will be coinciding with the new moon. One of the biggest reasons why we are having this energy spike, you could say, which is on top of this larger energy shift that's occurring due to the planetary resonances, is because of this coronal hole. And this is not the largest coronal hole that we've ever seen. Like this one you can see is much larger. This one being farther though in the southern hemisphere means it's not as easy to connect to the planet because the solar wind travels out along the ecliptic plane in between the sun and the earth. This, as you can tell, is right in that equatorial region. It's a trans-equatorial coronal hole. And this means that the high-speed solar wind that it is emanating and the open magnetic field that it has will connect directly to the Earth. There's some interesting numerology with this. You see here very clearly the number 7. This will be geoeffective around the 25th. And that is 25, that's the number 7. We're in the year 2025. If you take out the 20, 25, that's 7. And as well as that, we had this big Earth shift start on 7/7 with Uranus shifting into Gemini. So there's a lot to discuss in today's video. I can't go over literally everything that's happened in the past couple days. We've had distributed magnitude 5 earthquake activity around the globe, seemingly as a result of that 7.3 in Alaska. There were some significant energy waves that were felt from that. Eileen McCusick, the biofield tuner extraordinaire, she messaged me. She was in a group tuning, and right before that earthquake rupture, like in that 90 minutes before, the whole group was feeling like this energy disturbance. And then the big release of energy occurred with that magnitude 7.3. There was a massive magnetic pulse at that location that occurred because we had a magnetic observatory literally right on the epicenter, which is fantastic as it relates to measuring these sort of Earth changes. And there's also been, for example, happy Mercury retrograde. We just had Mercury station retrograde, now slowly moving backwards through the sky from our perspective here on Earth. We have the sun about to enter into its domicile in Leo. So Leo season's about to begin. We are in solar maximum. Sunspot numbers have broken past 200. They've slipped a little bit below 200 as of right now, but they are back. And so we have solar maximum coming back for, it looks like maybe a second peak in activity as the sun's about to enter into its home temple, you could say, as Mercury is retrograding through the sign of Leo. And on top of this shift, this larger energy shift that's occurring on the 25th, 24th, 25th, with that new moon, we have Uranus and Sedna finally reaching a 1-degree orb, which I think is very significant because Uranus has been in Taurus for 7 years. This is all Western tropical astrology, which lets us understand the reference frame of the local solar system. So like the reference of the local solar system. So we have, for example, 0 degrees of Aries being the spring equinox or the vernal equinox. And then you have 0 degrees of Cancer being solstice and so on and so forth. And so this lets us track specific degree angles in the solar system, not relative to the constellations. And then we split it into 12 sections, and these are the signs, okay? Well, there are very specific things that happen on Earth as it relates to the seasons. For example, I'm going to show you some research I just conducted in the past couple of days showing how earthquake activity varies by hemisphere and by season because it's related to that tilt angle of the Earth relative to the sun. So tracking these specific degrees is important and has context. And of course, there's thousands of years of study behind tracking the movement of the planets, their conjunctions and everything. So Uranus has shifted into Taurus. It did shifted out of Taurus into Gemini. That was on 7/7. Sedna shifted out of Taurus into Gemini before that, it's been less than a year, but I believe less than a year, but Sedna, which is this trans-Newtonian dwarf object, goes out nearly 1,000 astronomical units at its furthest distance from the sun. Way out there, interstellar codes and energies it's absorbing. It's coming in for its closest approach, 2076. And that only happens once every 11,500 years or so. So that's a significant shift, the Sedna shift. We don't even really know what that's going to bring to us. We can only guess. It was discovered first in 2003. But Sedna, as a result of this nearly 12,000 year long orbital period, it's been in Taurus for 60 years. 1965 is when it first entered. And that's when we had the Pluto-Uranus conjunction. Now Pluto and Uranus are in a trine. Meanwhile, Uranus is coming in and conjuncting Sedna. Both of them, Sedna and Uranus, having collected Earth energy through their transit in Taurus. And now they are, you could say, saturated with this Earth energy. Eventually that will be released. And so on top of that background foundational energy shift, we have this new moon where we have stronger tidal forces on the planet, not only ocean tides, but Earth tides. Therefore, greater earthquake activity is typical around new moons and full moons. And we have this coronal hole, which we've seen time and time again with these coronal holes, that they lead to enhanced earthquake activity on the globe. So you can expect overall seismic energy release to increase when this is geoeffective and up to a few days afterwards. And there's also the fact that these coronal holes are continuously loading the Earth with energy. And so if you don't have a big release of energy after 5, 6, 10 rotations, then that is kind of indicating that something bigger may be brewing and may eventually release, because they load a lot of energy into the Earth. And so we've seen with all the high magnitude earthquakes, magnitude 8, magnitude 8.5 plus, even the magnitude 9s have occurred in our recent time frame, all of them have had big coronal holes either right here or here, basically in that geoeffective position. So a lot to go over in today's video. And then also we are going to do a cosmic connection meditation, or what I'm now calling collective dream weaving at the end, to help bring in these new Earth energies, because there's tremendous potential right now at this moment in time to create and manifest using that solar activity and that energy of solar maximum, and also these historic planetary resonances, which connect to the incredible planetary resonances that we had back in 1965, which was this big pulse of consciousness and spirituality. So we are back in that right now. People are going to look back on 2025 decades from now as a reawakening of the human psyche and spirituality and more. So yes, hello and welcome everyone. If you're new to the channel, I'm your host, Stefan Burns, geophysicist, space weatherman, cosmic weatherman, and more. We discuss all these things on the channel. I release videos almost daily. If you like to stay up to date with what is happening with the Earth energetically, then please subscribe. Now, right before we get into it, I do want to share that on the earthevolution.com/store website, we have right now a ton of herb coffee in stock. And this stuff is awesome because it is 50% coffee, but also has roasted chicory root, dandelion root, and lion's mane mushroom. 12.5% of this is lion's mane mushroom. All of it organic, really high quality. So when you have this increase in solar energy, it has been correlated to increases in synchronicity and also to just increases in creative energies and the ability to manifest. When there's just more energy in the environment, it just creates like a greater kind of metabolic effect, you could say, and connects us greater to source. And the sun is connected to source and spirit in the astrological archetypal framework. So herb coffee is fantastic because it helps you to just kind of increase your energy a little bit, but not too much like normal coffee. It can be too jittery. This stuff is really nice, calm, grounded, but also enhancing. And there's a synergistic effect to it. It tastes amazing. And so you can feel this like upwelling and surge of creative potential but it also gets you focused and productive, so you actually do the thing. Because sometimes you can get lost in the sauce and your mind is in such a creative state that it's kind of hard to put things into practice and to put things down on paper, what have you. You just stay in imagination land, which sometimes is fantastic and what's needed. But there's also right now the fact that we need to actually do the things. We need to take the responsibility upon ourselves. And Saturn and Aries would speak to that, saying it's time to like shoulder the weight and actually see this through. So this is on the website, earthevolution.com/store. You can pick it up. You can use the code PLANETS right now for 5% off. All the products, but herb coffee right now, we have a ton of it in stock, freshly packed and ground up. We make and mix it ourselves, my dad and I. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention right off the bat because this stuff is awesome. I mean, I love this herb coffee and everyone says it's incredible. So yeah, wanted to share that with you. Let us look at what's happening overall before we get into our collective dream weaving. Here we have our earthevolution.com/energy-analytics portal. And we see up top our Schumann resonances here. And then down below, we see our global seismic activity level. I'm going to turn myself off. So you see these trends just most recently on the right side, you see that big red bar. That's at 7.3 in Alaska. Before that, we had that 6.7 in the Banda Sea, Indonesia. And so we've just recently had a bit of an uptick in earthquake activity, kind of broke the downtrend that we are in. And our radiation belts are also loaded up. So give this a watch. We have our radiation belts reaching really high flux values right now. So as it relates to this upcoming high-speed stream impact from that coronal hole, and we've just been buffeted by 3 pulses of high-speed solar wind, we're now totally loaded up. So when it comes to it, there's going to be greater ion precipitation that can occur with that impact, and therefore greater geomagnetic volatility. So the ionosphere is really charged up right now. We just had some big sunspots form on the sun. They're rotating out. We have new ones that are rotating in. But look at the charge level on the sun here, or on the Earth here, our radiation belts. We're fully charged and we're at values that we don't see that often. And we can see our sunspots if you go further down here. So we can see that these are starting to rotate out of view, though they are approaching the western limb, and they've been growing quite significantly. So as they get close to that western limb, they could flare. If they do that, we could get a radiation storm. So that's also a potential possibility for enhancing the energy around that new moon. Because look how big these are starting to get, and they're right on that western limb. They have not been flaring significantly. We haven't been having any significant solar flares, just low-grade C-class activity, but at some point that is going to change. We see new sunspots rotating in, as we can see here. And in fact, if we go to our latest far side data from the sun, we see that on the far side of the sun, so this is not Earth facing, this is the other side, we see a lot of sunspots here. So all these are going to be rotating through over the next 2 weeks. Like basically now at this point, the sun is loaded up with sunspots once more, so we're going to have more continuous solar flux as a result. This is radio flux, and this is more solar flares and overall X-ray flux, extreme ultraviolet light. Keep in mind, these sunspots are often bigger than the Earth, and each one is a magnetic vortex. So it's not just like the magnetic field looping like this. There are these coronal loops that form, but literally each and every single one of these forms a magnetic vortex like that. And so when you have them kind of in this zone here, they can connect to the Earth in interesting, unique ways that we're really only starting to figure out. Here we have our electron flux, as I showed you with the radiation belt model. And you can see that we're at very high values. We've been charging up now significantly for quite some time. And if we go to our real-time solar wind, this will show you the high-speed stream impacts that we've had and how we have another one effectively coming in. Let me go to our 30-day view here. And we can see very clearly that we've been in some elevated activity. So here's the first high-speed stream impact. This is late June right there. The values there went up to about 750 kilometers per second. And we see that the solar wind interplanetary magnetic field increased in strength. But then things kind of cooled off, a little bump right there. But look at this, 1, 2, 3. So we're coming off of 3 high-speed stream impacts. And during this time period, we had that 6.7 earthquake hit the Banda Sea, Indonesia. That was just a few days ago. And then just a couple days ago, we had that magnitude 7.3 in Alaska. And it was because of these coronal hole high-speed streams, I put out a global earthquake watch just saying, hey guys, more likely we're going to have high magnitude earthquakes somewhere. Don't know where, but somewhere these trends in global seismic activity are more easily forecastable using space weather. So that is something that I've been talking about. We see these 3 have come in. That energy doesn't just immediately dissipate. It takes time to work its way through the Earth energy system. For example, the radiation belts now being fully charged, right? The next storm impact is going to precipitate those down. And they got fully charged because of these high-speed streams loading them up. So there are long-term effects to this. So that next high-speed stream coming up, because that trans-equatorial coronal hole, I think is going to be quite significant. There's going to be that magnetic field connection between the sun and the earth with the moon in front because it's a new moon. And then on that day, we have Uranus and Sedna reach their 1-degree orb and a lot of astrological activations for Japan, which is interesting because we've been tracking what's been happening there, and that's been quite significant. Here we have our sunspots, and this is our daily. So this is our estimated number. We see that we spiked up to 200 there, have started to come down as those big sunspot groups have been rotating out. But keep in mind, all those sunspots on the far side are going to be rotating in. So we're going to likely stay kind of in this zone here in between 150 and 200. I don't think that's going to change significantly for the next 30 days. So we are now in a higher, now in a period of just in general greater sunspot numbers, and sunspots are what give you X-ray flux. So if we go back to our NOAA portal, we can look at our X-ray flux. It has relatively been flat, but you can see a very slight increase just across this time frame, just very slightly going up, just barely. But in general, during solar maximum, this is much higher than it is during solar minimum. And it's this increased energy from sunspots because of the extreme ultraviolet light and X-ray emissions that charge the ionosphere. And the ionosphere is a very important component, one of the most important components, if not the most important component of the global electric circuit. So as the uppermost part of the atmosphere becomes just more charged up, you have more molecules going from neutral to ions in charge. You have just more plasma surrounding the planet. We have more plasma right now surrounding the planet than we have during solar minimum, and also just right now than we've had, let's say, like a week ago. So we have more plasma surrounding the planet, and this just in general affects the geophysical system. So this can be stronger and enhanced weather patterns on Earth. So if there is, for example, a geomagnetic storm, like an ion precipitation event around the 24th, 25th of July, then that can mean that if there's a local rain cloud or rain system passing through, maybe it becomes a thunderstorm, things like that. Things just get enhanced, more volatile. This is also the same as it relates to the Earth, the crust, because the lithosphere, the crust, and the ionosphere have like this capacitor relationships because they're both conductive, whereas the air in between is resistive. So when both of them get more charged, then you can have these stronger electric currents flow through them, and there's connections with that and earthquakes. And earthquakes generate these really significant ionospheric disturbances, some of which are called TIDs, traveling ionospheric disturbances. And after a really big earthquake, you actually get a depletion in the electrons of the ionosphere. It's almost like it pools the electrons, changes that because the gravity waves, there's a whole bunch of mechanisms at play. But because of the stronger ionosphere, that makes these sort of high magnitude earthquakes more likely. What's the percentage on that? I don't know. It's probably very minor. For example, that new moon, full moon tidal effect on earthquakes is like 0.5 to 1%. We do see the highest magnitude earthquakes tend to cluster around the new moon or the full moon, but the global effect of increased seismicity as a result of those stronger earth tides because of the new moon or the full moon position, it's like 0.5 to 1%. So there are a lot of factors as it relates to earthquake activity globally. The ionosphere is just one of them, and what the and of course that amount that it contributes and controls and governs things fluctuates too, because the Earth is always undergoing changes. I want to show you also some original research I've done. I believe it's not there. Here it is. I did some original research on the 17th. This is really, I just had the idea and I figured out a way to kind of explore it. So this research paper is available on the website at earthevolution.com/research, and I'll be publishing all the research that I do there. So this didn't take me too long to make, and this is basically describing the variations in global seismic activity that occurs based off the hemisphere and the season. So using USGS data going from January 1st, 1900 up to July 17th, 2025. This is all the earthquakes magnitude 6 and greater. I analyze this to see if there's changes in earthquake frequency for those magnitudes based off of the hemisphere and also the season. Now keep in mind, before we look at the data, that 68% of Earth's total landmass is in the northern hemisphere, whereas only about 32% is in the southern hemisphere. So there is more, there's more fault lines and plate boundaries in the northern hemisphere, and as a result, there is a skew of more earthquakes occurring in the northern hemisphere in general because of that. But that also means that there's changes in surface conductivity as a result, because ocean water is much more electrically conductive than geologic materials. So ocean water has a conductivity about, let's say, 4 Siemens per meter, though that has that range that you can see there, whereas geologic materials generally are less than 10 to -5 Siemens per meter. And the ionosphere has a conductivity about 10 to -7 Siemens per meter. So that also contributes to this, because this is relating to the global electric circuit. But if we look here, check this out, this is really cool. If we look here, the number of earthquakes magnitude 6 plus based off of the season and for the hemispheres. So we have the vernal equinox, summer solstice, autumnal equinox, and the winter solstice. And you'll notice that we have a lot of earthquakes during the vernal equinox. This is March, right? March 20th, 21st. And then during the autumnal equinox, which is what we're approaching, this is September, like September 21st or so, right? We have the southern hemisphere all of a sudden have more of these magnitude 6 plus earthquakes. Across this time frame, 1900 to 2025, 125 years, a very short time duration for the Earth overall. But with our most recent data, that's basically our data collection record for earthquakes. That's high quality, 1900 to now. We see that the southern hemisphere has more earthquakes consistently overall than the northern hemisphere around the autumnal equinox. And if we scroll down, some interesting trends pop up. So here we have a breakdown graphic for these two. This is the northern hemisphere, number of earthquakes, magnitude 6 plus by day of the year. Again, across this entire 125-year time frame. And you can download this research paper by going to www.earthevolution.com/research. But we see a spike in the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere for these magnitude 6 plus earthquakes just before the vernal equinox. That's again March 21st or so. And then we see for the southern hemisphere this broad increase in these magnitude 6 earthquakes. So we're more likely to have magnitude 6 earthquakes just in general around the autumnal equinox, with about 2 months on either side. And we are in that right now, because we're right about here right now. So we're just entering into this wave where there's greater high magnitude 6 plus earthquakes clustering in the southern hemisphere. But you'll also notice, this is really interesting. You see this spike there on winter solstice exactly for the northern hemisphere, and you also see that spike there on the southern hemisphere. So there's something also with that winter solstice. But look right there in the northern hemisphere, at least for this time frame, we get an earthquake cluster and an earthquake cluster about equidistant from the autumnal equinox. And these are two of the most significant spikes in this day set. I would say this vernal equinox there, this cross-quarter day, and then the winter solstice are the most clear signals that we get in terms of high magnitude 6 plus earthquakes being more likely. So this is right around Lammas Day, which is the cross-quarter day in between solstice and equinox for the summer. And that's August 1st. And this specifically right here is going from, I have it written down. I believe it's August, I have to go back a page on my notes. This specifically right there calculates to August 10th to the 14th. Sorry, August 10th to the 20th, right there is that seismic cluster. And the other one right here, this is right around Halloween, the other cross-quarter day, or Samhain. So we get this really interesting earthquake clustering around that. So we had this big Earth shift with Uranus moving into Gemini on the 7th, because Uranus has been holding onto these Earth energies for 7 years, and so it needs to release them to take in that new Gemini energy. And Sedna also has all this Earth energy. It's accumulated over 60 years, and we have this, just in general, this seismic cluster coming up soon, beginning of August, after this coronal whole high-speed stream impact, after this new moon. So we have a lot of things already in play, and then we also have this kind of on top of it. So if you want to read this paper, we go on further and look at seismic energy release measured in terawatt hours, and we also talk about the ionosphere. You can download it again from earthevolution.com/research. Bookmark that. I'm going to be doing more research like that, writing the papers and publishing them there. Excited to present that for you all. Something else that has kind of been capturing some attention, which I just wanted to quickly address. I'm by no means an expert on this. By no means I'm going to do a lot more research into this, but just giving you my initial, basically unfiltered, raw thoughts on this. Here we're looking at the wobble, you could say, in Earth's tilt angle and how that changes across time. And some people are making this out to be like the end of the world. Of course, everyone always does. So there is that. But we see this going all the way back to 1965, which is that time frame of Pluto-Uranus that we're going to discuss more in just a little bit. And then we'll do that collective dreamweaving. But we see that there are variations in the rotation and the spin and all this for Earth across time. And so what's interesting is that you notice that there's kind of like these wider bands. Actually, let me tilt this so you can see how like there's these circles, right? These are all circles. We have these wider bands that then go narrow and then wide, and then narrow and wide. Let me again get that lined up for you. See how it kind of goes wide, and there's like this pulsing rhythm to this across time. Well, if we go to our most recent time frame here, we had this big pulse where things widened out in 2010, and then we just noticed that like kind of the rhythm got shifted after that. So more regular patterns, and then all of a sudden a shift here, and we started to finally widen back out. As you can see just recently with like the past 3-4 years. And if we zoom in on this, you'll notice that just in 2025, starting around April, notice how this is like, it was originally going to be a wide circle. It just started to cut sharply in. So there has been a significant change in that, but as it relates to Earth's rhythms, I don't think this is outside of the norm at all, but there are these changes that are unfolding at this time that are contributing to the larger picture. So I just wanted to, I'm going to research more into this. I wanted to bring this to your awareness. but you can see how kind of significant of a change that is, whereas we were starting to enter, it looked like, into one of these wider bands, and then we shifted back to more tight and close. So Earth's rotation is basically speeding up as a result of that. I think these are all within normal ranges. The bigger thing I see here is the interesting change in tilt of this across time. So that's interesting in my opinion, but I need to do a lot more research into this. But I wanted to show that to you, something that I'm looking into. And if we just touch on Mount Rainier really quick, because this is interesting, we see that earthquakes have really reached a high cumulative value. So we'll draw our cross-section line here, and I can get this like so. Let's see what our cumulative value is now. Yesterday it was 800, now it's over 800 for this time frame. So here we see earthquakes at Mount Rainier. It was at 25 before this burst started, and I believe it's 2009 is when they had a significant earthquake burst there, about 120 earthquakes, average is 9 per month. That was the big one in 2009. Now we're basically at 800 earthquakes for this burst, because this is just about 825 now. So 825 to 825, 800 earthquakes. And USGS has not increased the alert level for this volcano. They've said it's just fluids moving along pre-existing faults. And there is not other evidence that suggests that some big volcanic event is imminent at Mount Rainier. But what I find interesting about this is that these fluids are conductive. They have a lot of dissolved ions in them, like salts and other things. So what we saw at Campi Flegrei, which recently just had a magnitude 4 yesterday, that's a pretty big earthquake, not the biggest, but a big earthquake, magnitude 4 Campi Flegrei. What we saw at Campi Flegrei with its seismic burst in February was all these pre-earthquake signals right before the earthquakes ruptured. And that was measured out of Cumiana, Italy. I've shown that data before. What could be the case here is that Mount Rainier is not that far away from Alaska in the grand scheme, right? It's like fairly close. So, and there is a volcano that is near that epicenter for the 7.3 that is actively erupting right now in the Aleutian Islands. But we saw this massive magnetic pulse from that 7.3 earthquake, and we saw before that and now after it these earthquakes at Mount Rainier. And so if you have a changing magnetic field, that will stimulate anything that's conductive to move. And so perhaps there's a connection between this magnitude 7.3 earthquake in Alaska and this seismic swarm at Mount Rainier because of the magnetic field. It's possible. Not saying that's 100% the case, but something I was thinking about, and my intuition is kind of poking me to tell me that that is what is happening. Let us look at our conjunction, near conjunction of Uranus and Sedna and this new moon, just by looking at the chart of the moment. So we're about 5 days out from this new moon, and this is a Leo new moon. And we can zoom in here a little bit. This is provided by astro.com. And so you'll notice, where are we? Here is Uranus there, and there is Sedna, okay? Both at the very beginning of Gemini. This is 0 degrees, 31 arc minutes, and then Sedna is at 1 degree, 39 arc minutes. So right now they are 1 degree and 8 arc minutes apart. So Uranus won't hit that 1 degree orb until the 25th of July. Basically the 24th, 25th, right on that new moon. Uranus is moving faster than Sedna, and it will enter into that 1 degree orb. I find this really fascinating because Pluto and Uranus were together in 1965, and that's when Sedna first shifted into Taurus. And now with Sedna just having shifted into Gemini, Uranus catches up and shifts into Gemini and is about to conjunct Sedna. And Uranus being this planet of disruption and change and electricity, plasma, earthquakes, Sedna being connected to the transformative power of like the deep ocean, which is where the majority of the Earth's volcanoes are, and seismic activity, plate boundaries, geology, most of it's in the deep ocean. not on the surface of the surface that we know, the continents and more. So this is indicating something changing within our deep ocean. And this manga prophecy by Ryo Tezuki not only speaks about there being some sort of volcanoseismic event in July 2025, she also, and I think most importantly, she speaks about how this brings about this new Earth energy where all of a sudden people start to work together cooperatively to bring in a new era of peace and prosperity. And it's a spiritual awakening for the entire planet. So Uranus and Sedna have all this Earth energy that they've accumulated, but they're meeting in Gemini, which is about communication, which is about, for example, artificial intelligence, which is revolutionizing many things. All this information is at our fingertips now, and you can help, using AI, you can help put this stuff together really easily. And we also just Gemini is also about trade, and it's very mercurial. We have Mercury retrograde right now. So I think this release of Earth energy, however that unfolds, is going to lead to the embracing of some new paradigm that is more Gemini in nature. And if you read some astrologers, they talk about how Gemini is the integration of not only Aries and Taurus. So this is really important too, because we have Saturn and Neptune here in Aries undergoing their conjunction. Nearly conjunct right now. They will go exactly conjunct in 2026, February, at 0 degrees, which is the initiation starting point of the entire thing. So the fact that we have Uranus now in Gemini, and it'll also be conjunct Sedna next year exactly, that is quite significant because Gemini is seen as the combination of Aries and Taurus, and then you have these triplicity pairs. So you have Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and then you have Cancer, Leo, Virgo. You have Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, and then you have Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. They kind of form these evolutions of consciousness across time, which is interesting. You can read about that in anything by Alan Leo, who is an astrologer from the early 20th century or so. But let me pull up our solar system scope to talk about these planetary resonances more, because I want to create, I want to show you really clearly how they're connected together, going back to 1965. So let me get this pulled up for you. And here we are. Okay, so here's where we are right now. Unfortunately, this program is not going to show Sedna because that'd be nice, but it just isn't showing Sedna. So here is Uranus right there, okay? This is Uranus, so you can imagine Sedna out beyond the orbit of Uranus, probably about 80 astronomical units right now. It's perihelion 76, right? So it's out beyond the orbit of Uranus. Well, if you zoom out, and let me turn myself off, okay? So watch my cursor. If we zoom out, we see Pluto here, we see Uranus there. They are in a trine to each other, okay? And this is within 1 degree orb. So this is a very close trine. Specifically on August 9th, we have a very powerful planetary resonance where we have, and if I zoom to that, August 9th, we have the Earth right here. We have Pluto, Uranus, Neptune, Saturn, Mars. So it's a kite formation, very tight kite formation on the 9th. But if I go back to effectively right now, they are still in that trine. Well, we have Neptune and Pluto in this sextile. If I scroll back to 1965, let's just take Uranus there and make it conjunct Pluto, okay? So here we have a Uranus-Neptune conjunction that coincided with the birth of the World Wide Web. That is 1993 in Capricorn, a very powerful conjunction as well. But if we go even further back, 1980 is when we had Jupiter-Saturn, as you can see right there. That was in Libra, the first air sign conjunction that occurred before the Great Mutation 2020, because they had a conjunction, 1980. In 2000, they had it in Taurus. But here we go back, we're getting close to our date. Here is 1965. It was September of 1965, I believe, that they went conjunct. Also in 1966, there were 2 conjunctions between Uranus and Pluto. But here we see that right there. So notice though, Neptune. Neptune here is sextile to both of them. And so this occurred at around 17 degrees of Virgo. There was a comet that flew in right around this time in the same part of the sky, a really bright, powerful comet in 1965 that was seen from Japan, actually. God, I should really try to pull this up. Let me pull this up for you guys because I'm just remembering this now, and this may kind of put everything together for us. Comet Ikeya-Seki reached perihelion October 21st, 1965. It was a sun grazer shining at an apparent magnitude of -10, which is very, very bright. Venus, for example, is about -4.2 or so. As bright as the full moon, making it visible during the day, and one of the brightest comets in 1,000 years. Comet Ikeya-Seki appeared during a rare Uranus-Pluto moon conjunction at 17 degrees Virgo, sextile Neptune at 18 degrees Scorpio. And this is the comet that was also visible daylight from Japan. So we've been talking about Japan a lot because there's a lot of energy like swirling around Japan at this moment in time. Why? You don't know. It swirls around different places at different times. But this was visible from Japan very, very brightly. 1965, right during that Uranus-Pluto conjunction, which the moon also participated in, and then that was sextile Neptune. Okay, so let's zoom out of this. So we have Neptune there in that sextile. Well, if we go forward again by grabbing Uranus, we will go to where we are now. Now it's a different type of sextile. Before Neptune was ahead, you could say, but now in 2025, Uranus is ahead. Pluto and Neptune have retained their sextile. They've been in this sextile on and off now for like 50, 70 years. So they're in the same position, but Uranus now has moved forward and now it's in that opening trine. So this is a very harmonious energy as it relates to the energies and what was happening in 1965. It's like the love revolution and Woodstock and hippies and Haight-Ashbury in San Francisco, like a lot of amazing, incredible energies back then. And we have that coming back to us right now. And Sedna, again, was entering into Taurus in 1965. So everything that's happened since then, Sedna has been integrating and embodying in the sign that represents the Earth itself, because Taurus is fixed Earth. Now it's shifting into Gemini, this more intellectual energy, this more mental space, and it's related to the mind, and it's related to human duality, the choices that we can make, and the integration of Aries and Taurus. So Sedna shifting there is very, very important. And then Uranus coming in with that 1 degree orb conjunction with this new moon on the 24th, 25th, I think is very, very powerful. A big Earth shift, signaling a big release of Earth energy. And Earth energy is very dense, it's material. So we're transmuting density immediately into the mental space. And so what that entails is that we realize that we can let go of prior programming, and we can let go of the constraints of the material world, and we can we can imagine our own reality, and we can manifest that. We can create our own sacred spaces. We don't necessarily need to get locked and trapped into an Earth that has had all of its sacred space obliterated across time. Back in the past, the ancient times, we had shamans and we had tribal elders, and we still do now, but a lot of sacred spaces have been erased or even forgotten. When I was in Varna, Bulgaria, that's the site of the oldest known goldsmithy on the planet. And they have elaborate burial mounds there where the tribal chieftain and his his consort and maybe servants or whatever. A lot of them are buried, and they have these really fine gold ornaments, and the priests have like these interesting gold scepters. They have very complex religious rites, clearly. And they found these burial mounds near these interesting geologic formations which form these natural columns. And I went to that site. I ventured in and trekked out across. It's kind of remote, but you can do it. I took the train and went there, and the energies there are just really, really powerful. Like, you can feel them, especially if you do some sort of ceremony, which I did. And so that's just simply been forgotten. But as someone that's studied into this, I can kind of put one and one together and then figure it out. So I went there and did the thing and reactivated those energies. There's plenty of people working with more well-known energy sites and turning on that Earth grid. But the sign that the Earth grid is changing is that change in Earth's rotation, and also things like these magnetic pulses, like what we got from the magnitude 7.3. And that Uranus-Pluto conjunction in Virgo. This shift of Uranus and Sedna just coming out of Taurus. And so if we also look at 1965, Uranus and Pluto in Virgo, 1964 and 1960 is when we had some really big earthquakes. The biggest on record, 1960 was the magnitude 9.5. And then in 1964 was the 9.2 in Alaska. So there are some significant Earth shifts that are unfolding at this moment in time, and what is the opportunity ahead of us, fueled by this solar maximum energy, is that we can choose the direction we want to go collectively, and we don't just have to sit back and wait for someone else to choose our destiny. That Aries energy is asking us to embark upon our own mission and choose what we want, and to do it with the highest consciousness possible. With everyone in mind, and also with your own spiritual journey in mind and growth. So I don't believe there's anything else to present in today's video, but we do have that collective consciousness meditation, or the collective dream weaving. So let me get that set up, and then we will get started. So please stick around for the dream weaving, because this is what's important. The report is interesting, helps you understand where we are, get grounded and centered, but doing the thing is so, so, so important. Having the experience. So if you're skeptical of this, I would just recommend you stay around and just do a meditation. And for everyone else that's 100% on board already, I would ask you to join to empower this this collective dream weaving and build that resonance even further. We have the singing bowls ready. We have our singing bowl for the third eye and also for the crown chakra. Yes. And so I invite you to find a comfortable position and just start to relax. And close your eyes, because we are going to together envision the type of earth that we want to live on. Nice relaxed breathing. Prana is life. Together, we create a resonance in tune with the earth. In tune with the sun and with the cosmos. An earth in harmony with space for all. Where creative expression is encouraged and celebrated. Where people are empowered, not enslaved. One love, one love, one love. I see an earth bountiful, green, vibrant, pulsing with energy. Just alive, almost electric. Each of us nodes in a greater network, helping to stabilize the Earth grid. And thus the entire energy field of the solar system. And Earth, where not only humans, but all life flourishes. Where people are educated into the mysteries of the planet. Curiosity exists. Where people are not closed but open with their hearts, expansive with their minds, and integrated into their spirit. We vision an Earth where people are cognizant of the God-given gifts that they have, recognize that they can use this solar energy to create and to build express themselves with art, dance, make unique scientific paradigm-shattering breakthroughs, to even build public works that serve everyone, to take a leap collectively into a brighter future. And to not tolerate anything but the best. And we welcome in any and all Earth shifts from our mother planet that are needed to bring this to fruition. have trust and faith in the Earth, the Sun, solar system, the stars, all of which are expressions and facets of God. What will you create? What will you manifest? How will you treat others today, tomorrow? How will you treat yourself? With respect, compassion, love? Yes. It is time to be more, to be better, to take that responsibility upon ourselves. Not begrudgingly, but willingly, excited. An awareness of everything that it will give birth to. We give thanks to the universe for life, abundance, and awareness as to the significance of this moment and of the beauty of the now, the present moment. Thank you. Just holding on to the energy. Just feel that. Let it continue to resonate. Take that and integrate it into your body and become a generator of that earth frequency. Thank you all so much, everyone, for joining today, for watching the video, the report, and for taking part in this collective dream weaving for New Earth. I've been your host, Stefan Burns. Thank you all so much for watching. You can go to earthevolution.com to check out a variety of things. For example, that new research paper I wrote, or you can check out the store or the energy analytics page. All those are linked in the video description, and I will be back with more updates as they are needed. That is my promise to you. That's a responsibility that I've placed upon my shoulders to be your go-to cosmic weatherman. So thank you all so much for watching. Please smash that like button, subscribe to stay in the know, share this with friends, family, and more. And I'll be back very soon. Wishing all of you well. Please take care of yourselves. Rest as needed. I think that's very important now. These energies are very, very strong. And when the time comes, if we are not rested, we will not be able to act. So rest while you can, when Spirit guides you to do so. And yeah, together, amazing things are going to unfold. So thank you all so much. Namaste, love and light. See you all very soon.